Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update for everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. Today is Friday the 28th. I'm Whack Whack Attack. We got a big episode ahead, so let's get started. So, every day this week, we've been talking about the governance stuff that's happening, about LEB8s, or LEBs in general, I guess, and about how we want to go forward with collateralizing those. A few months ago, the community pretty much as a whole decided that the 10% of protocol ETH should be the minimum for an LEB mini pool. However, the issue of maximum collateral was never established. So that's what we've been trying to figure out. Now, we've been talking about it non-stop pretty much for the last 3 or 4 days. And Danda Chaka here in governance yesterday said, heroic effort pulling this together, everyone. Special thanks to Valdorf for authoring the vote. And Valdorf said, honestly, shout outs to a lot of passionate people like Marceau, Noshua, Invis, Whack Whack Attack. I'm going to stop listing and hopefully Ro isn't angry yet. So a lot of people have been talking very strongly, very passionately, but mostly respectfully about how it's all coming together. So I'm going to give some updates now on where we kind of stand as of right now. So one of the things that happened overnight is Valdorf. So I'm summarizing a whole lot of things here, and one of the things that happened here was Valdorf said this is what we have at the time, with Marceau no longer interested in option 1. Is anyone else going? Is anyone else, or should we drop that? So here we had option 1, which was scaling with protocol ETH, option 2, which was scaling with node operator ETH, and option 3 as a flat 24. So these, like at that time, Valdorf was thinking no one was really pushing for the protocol ETH option anymore. However, we'll come back to that actually. So then a couple of hours later, Langers had this post explaining myself at 5:48 in the afternoon is dangerous, but here goes. And he said the team takes its steward responsibility very seriously, but we are hyper aware of not overstepping or taking advantage. Although I concede this is like walking on a tightrope, so I don't expect us to get it right all the time. The protocol ether approach has the potential to create centralizing force in Rocket Pool's governance and undermines a section of the population who have less voice. This is why we came in strong. Of course, large RPL holders hold a lot of power, but this approach would create a feedback loop of accumulation that would tend towards centralization. We are reflective on our approach, and we will certainly consider how we can do things better. I feel that a compromise is much better than a contentious vote. The community surprises me every day. We are open to having the hard discussions, but there are a lot of values that we all share. In the end, it's going to be hard to make Rocket Pool as an organization work, but I truly believe it's worth it. Have a great weekend, everyone. So now going back to the post that the table that Valdorf shared. So what Langers is kind of saying is that they don't want the 150% of the protocol ETH, but he's kind of backing the 24 flat ETH lockup. If I'm putting words in Langers' mouth, I'm really sorry about that, but that's just kind of like a summation of some of the comments from the previous few days. So that's kind of where the team was gesturing towards that. Of course, then we had a lot more discussion going on all night, kind of about what should happen, where we should stand, what things should go to vote. And right now, like the way it stands literally as of right now, is that we kind of came up with the options. And I said, here's me, like just literally half an hour ago, I said, where do we stand on the options going into the snapshot? I'm sorry to keep coming back around to this, but I think it's the main thing left. Frankly, we have exhausted discussion. No new ideas are coming up. We currently have, and then there was 5 options. 1 is 150% node operator ETH, 2 flat max collateral per LEB, which is at 24 ETH, 3 150% of protocol ETH, 4 abstain from this vote, or 5 push back LEBs from Atlas, don't include them in Atlas. So that's kind of where we're kind of talking about literally right now. That's the conversation that's going on, is about framing the snapshot with those options and whether or not we should include the option of 150% for of protocol ETH, and because the teams kind of like signaled their disapproval of that, let's just say, or their inclination against that. So Marceau says, my leaning is to put forth straight 150% pETH for everyone, and then let the team throw their weight around appropriately. Having a soft veto from the team isn't beneficial to our governance, nor should we be afraid of introducing options that they don't support. Also, I also disagree with the framing from Langers against pETH, but that's a separate point. So we're kind of like trying to figure that out. Like, people are still discussing this, and I'm not sure if so Valdo says, I'm tentatively okay with the path of putting 150% protocol ETH as in our proposed snapshot options. That said, we also need a path for if they refuse to include it. Is it simply we're okay with that being stricken, ask for an explanation, or is it we don't accept? And so that's what we're trying to go there, and then we come back with it. Like, this is literally stuff that's happening right now. Like, these are messages that I haven't even read yet. So Maso says, if this option wins but is vetoed, then we'll just fail over to the second most popular vote, ? Is it, in a practical sense, an option won't win without the team support? So I'm not worried about it in a real sense, but I see your point. So I think and then Noshua says, I will not vote if pETH option is excluded without better explanation. Everyone has to decide for themselves if they're willing to legitimize that process by participating. So that's another interesting point that has come up as well. But so literally the most up-to-date comment right now is Kalodran saying, if it gets removed to the snapshot, I would support holding the vote with the other two options. If it's included and wins and it is removed, then I think it doesn't matter, because at that point the team has to code something for Atlas and will presumably go with either the next highest vote recipient or whatever they prefer, which again would occasion quite the governance discussion afterwards. So, we're in a really tough situation, and that's one of the reasons why the discussion has gone on for so many days, is at every point people have slightly different ideas and opinions and perspectives that they want to push forward. So thankfully, for the vast majority of the part, the discussion in governance has stayed like very civil. However, sadly, that's not always been the case in trading. So like Ludicrous Hobbyist shared this tweet from Hani Abu saying, hey, RP intern Maso ETH, what will the price of RPL be with 6 to 8% market share? And Maso says that depends on what degree the DAO is successful in harming RPL's tokenomics. That's the biggest variable right now, and there's too much up in the air to give a definitive answer. Ask me again in 2 weeks, insinuating that he'll have an idea of where things stand after the vote goes through. And then that kind of spurred a bit of a toxic conversation in trading. And the only reason, I wouldn't be mentioning this, but I just kind of want to mention that this is a point that has brought attention to everyone in the community, and everyone has an opinion about it. And sadly, a couple of times that has kind of spilled over, but for the majority of the part of it, it's really kept it like civil and good, and like letters saying here it's getting toxic in here. But thankfully there was very little of the toxicity, and almost all of the toxicity was confined to trading. None of it actually went to the Discord channel, the governance channel in Discord, which is really great to see. So again, like based on that tweet, Maso came into trading this morning, and he explained what he meant by that. He said, our treasury is denominated in RPL, our ability to marketing, pay for the ODAO, do liquidity incentives, etc. is all denominated in RPL. Our reward structure is denominated in RPL. Our community has skin in the game in the form of RPL. If we're not going to have RPL value preservation be a principle, then we should drop the damn token already. And I think that was a very fair point, because some of the people were saying, oh, we should redesign the tokenomics so RPL has less of a position and blah blah blah. And I think that's really wrong, because the foundations of Rocket Pool protocol and so many of the incentives we have were aligned with that. So that has to be considered in any decisions we make. Dr. Doofus had a really interesting point, and so this goes out for Dr. Doofus. He says, for today's Rocket Fuel, can you summarize each person's position and provide vigorous criticisms of why they're wrong? Okay, so I'm not going to summarize the people's positions necessarily, because I don't think that's fair. Well, maybe I can say, like, it seems like the three most strong proponents of 150% node operator ETH are Val and Noshua and Invis. They're the three who have argued most strongly in favor of that. Other people have come in and mentioned it as well, but no one with quite that that consistency, I want to say, like even though they might hold the position even more strongly. Then there's the 24 ETH position. I think I'm the main proponent of that, and it seems to be like the compromise position. Originally, when we were talking about it, it was the 40 ETH position, but I think the 24 ETH position makes a bit more sense. And that the team has given some indication towards supporting that position. It's seen as the compromise position where 16 ETH mini pools have 24 ETH collateral in form of RPL. So 8 ETH mini pools can have the same amount, and then the 4 ETH ones can have the same amount as well. And in the third position, the one that I was talking about initially, and Marceau seems to be another person, and along with like denom.eth, is that 150% of protocol ETH will do its best to support the rETH collateral as well as possible. So now in terms of criticism, so those are different people who kind of in those teams. In terms of criticism or why they're wrong, so 150% node collateral ETH I think is wrong because it reduces the amount of RPL locked up as collateral as a share of rETH. So in terms of per mini pool, it keeps it consistent to what we have now with 16 ETH. But when you look at it from the perspective of rETH, there is a lot less collateral behind it. So right now, and denom.eth made this point as well, right now the team, was saying in Bogota that rETH is the only over collateralized or completely collateralized liquidity staking derivative, and by changing it to 8 ETH node plus 2.4 ETH of collateral, and then a maximum of 12, that means that it won't be over collateralized in the same ways, and that becomes more the case for LEB4s and LEB2s. So that's kind of the criticism of that. The criticism of the 24 ETH position is that it's just like an arbitrary number, and why 24 ETH, why not 12, why not 36, why not 100, why not 17, whatever. I think the main strength of the 24 ETH position is that that's what we have now, which is 24 ETH worth of RPL as the max collateral on LEB16s. So then it's just kind of keeping that level of collateral going forward as well, and it keeps more of the rETH collateralized. And then the final position is 150% node operator, 150% protocol ETH. And the main criticism of that position is that there's just too much RPL being staked by whales, and it would kind of skew their power in terms of voting, and it would be a centralizing force. Of course, that position is the one that will most strongly secure rETH, and then there is a criticism of that as well, is that there's difficulties in getting liquidity out of RPL that's staked if black swans happen, but that's going like a little bit further down the rabbit hole. Just the main strength is that more rETH will be collateralized, and the main weakness is that too much power will go to whales. So I hope that I've done a good job of that. Please let me know if there are things that I've missed. Like, of course, the scope of this video is a lot narrower. So I've tried my best to give an understanding of what the different positions are, which people are involved in pushing those positions, and then what some of the strengths and weaknesses are of those positions as well. So yeah. Okay, finally, moving on from that governance to now different governance. So there's two votes happening right now. One is for the Grants and Bounties Management Committee, and the other is for the pDAO treasurer. So Joe was wondering, like, okay, so we're a little bit away from quorum on both of those votes. So, we've been making a push in the community to get people to vote. So Joe was hesitating to vote because he knows that, people would follow his vote in terms of just like, let's see what Joe did and then we'll just do the same, because he's like, a authority figure, I guess, in the community, and being on the team as well. And let me just see. Yeah, so Joe was kind of holding off on that, but because we're away from quorum, like he voted, so Joe then voted for himself. So now, we were kind of discussing where we stand, what's going on. So Waldorf shared the 2 snapshot votes of where we are right now. And then with the 2 snapshot votes, we are at, for RPIP 15, which is the Grants Management Committee, Joe has basically 1,000 votes. I have 494, Ken has 493, Kalildran has 473, Mentor has 445. So we're definitely like working up there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it seems like the top 6 are which will be pretty much set, which is at Wonder. However, it seems like the race for the 7th position might kind of go down to the wire between Invis and Object. And we are now, we've actually reached quorum, I think. So that's really great. It says 4,700 votes out of 4,700 votes. I think we've reached quorum on that, which is really wonderful. And then, but maybe we might just need a few more votes just to make sure. And then it seems like the vote for the pDAO treasurer has not reached quorum. It's 700 votes off. And I think that's part of that is because there's no abstain vote that is happening. So you kind of have to pick one or the other. And that is causing issues there. Waka is at 87% of the vote, and Z-Man Forever is at 13.4% of the vote, which is like 13%. So please come and vote to make sure these votes reach quorum. The one for the pDAO treasurer is more important for it to reach quorum. It's at 4,000 and needs 700 more votes. So please go and vote in those. Okay. So now there's even more governance stuff-ish, but not really governance. Langers said here, hey everyone, in accordance with RPIP 10, pDAO reserves accumulated before RPIP 10 was put in place are split between pDAO budget categories, and then there's budget there for reference to split. So incentives go to 50%, grants and bounties gets 30%, and reserve gets 20%. So Langers made this post saying that in accordance with that, there's money being allocated for the different groups, and the money is being paid out in such and such installments. So that information is right there, which is really great to see for transparency's sake. Next, we have this comment from Joe, which is about client updates. So Prism have got a recommended update, and then of course the ones that we talked about yesterday, there's all those updates. So now Joe says that for Smart Node Stack version 1.7.0, there might be some small differences in what you see when you are updating your software. He says we're planning to release that next week. There are a few unusual things with this release, so I want to prepare everyone regarding what to expect when you upgrade to it. So the first thing, when you update, you'll be prompted to install a Docker Compose plugin package if not already installed, which it most likely won't be on your system. And this may require sudo access depending on your setup. This is expected because version 1.7.0 replaces the deprecated Docker Compose Python script with a modern Docker Compose plugin package. And he says thanks to Yorick for bringing this to light. Next, when you run the service, now it'll be opt out for MEV. So there'll be MEV turned on by default, and you'll have to opt out of it if you want. So please be aware of what you want to enable, what they mean, what it is. It looks like a lot more people will now be switched into MEV after that happens. So please make an informed decision about that. And finally, once you start the service, a lot of output about downloading and extracting the containers, hundreds of lines in fact. So it looked different from what you normally see. And this is because the Docker Compose plugin has a slightly different output from the Docker Compose script that was there before. This is expected. Everything will be working normally. And yeah, you'll be all set. So please keep that in mind for when you update to version 1.7.0, which is later, well, next week, I guess. So that's cool. Thank you for that. Next, we have this screenshot posted by Lord Bog, posted overnight, and it's the Ribbon Finance's rETH covered call vault. And Lord Bog's incentives that we mentioned here a couple of weeks ago went live. So if you were able to get your rETH into that pool, the yield for this week is 154%, which is like a tremendously huge yield, which is really cool to see. So that vault is being like strongly juiced right now. And before I carry on, I should definitely mention that covered calls are very risky. The vault this week lost, I think, 4%. Like, you know, it's risky, right? However, with this yield juiced up the way it is by Lord Bog, I think next week it makes it worth it. However, this is not financial advice. I have told many people that I would not invest in this, so it's up to you to do your own due diligence. However, I just wanted to make clear to you that the rewards there are really, really nicely juiced right now, so it might make it more attractive for you. Next week, if the vault maxes out in terms of capacity, which these kind of yields it should do, the amount should come down, but at the end it should stay very nicely juiced. So just as Lord Bog does something nice on one side, on the other side we have a sale coming in like a couple of hours later, 3 hours later, from Lord Bog's wallet, and he sold 350 ETH worth of RPL, 21,718 RPL, and it like knocked down the ratio a lot. So on one side Lord Bog gives, on the other side he takes away. And yeah, I'm just laughing about that now, so fair enough. I just thought I'd bring that up. This next thing that's happened quite interesting, and I think the consequences of it would have been a lot more pronounced if the deposit pool was empty. Like, we really need LEBs right now, like right now we need them. But rETH is now trading at a premium, which is at 0.36%, 37%. However, the interesting thing is that wstETH or Lido's ETH is also now trading at premium. So this is the first time since its crash in June, I think it was. At that point, it was trading 8% underprice. So people who had enough foresight at the time to get wstETH instead of their rETH have now made an 8% profit in that time, which is absolutely fantastic for those people. The Coinbase is still trading at a 4% discount, so that's the same as it's been for the last few weeks. So the reason why I mentioned the deposit pool is because if there was space in the deposit pool, I think we'd start seeing people swapping their Lido ETH now for rETH. But because there's no ETH there's no space for ETH in the deposit pool until we get more node operators or more mini pools, then that, sadly, we won't be seeing the advantage of that. But hopefully we'll start seeing the advantage of that soon. Next, we have this comment from Maso, who said the Maker executive vote has passed, by the way. So if you go have a look at the Maker executive vote, it says it's passed on October 28th, which is today, at 13:23, which is 3 o'clock and 23 minutes UTC. So we had 30 supporters. We got the required amount of votes. So now rETH will be onboarded to Maker, which is really great to see. However, it's going to take a week or 2 weeks for the debt ceiling oracle to be turned on, and at that point the debt ceiling will be 5 million DAI, which is really low, but I think that's just a starting point, and then eventually that debt ceiling will be increased higher as demand for that product increases. So I'm really happy that vote passed. It's really, really wonderful to see rETH being integrated in different DeFi Lego pieces. And now what can happen is you can deposit your, in a week or 2 weeks, you'll be able to deposit your rETH into Maker and mint DAI, and then use that DAI to do whatever you want. You can use it to buy more rETH and then do that again. Of course, that is risky because you'll have issues with liquidation, so keep that in mind. However, if you have a big chunk of rETH, you can now mint DAI against it and then repay that loan accordingly. So that's really, really great to see. And yeah, I'm really happy that that's happened. We as a community have been waiting for this for a long time. The next thing is to get that Chainlink Oracle set up and all working, and get Aave to onboard rETH as well. So yeah, today has been one of those days where we've had a lot of governance talk going on again, and I think on Monday, when I make the next episode, the vote will be up and running. So at that point, maybe we can go over the different voting options as well, and we can see what's going on in that. So I'm going to stop recording now, and I'm going to talk to you guys next week. So I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and yeah, we'll see you on Monday. Bye.